Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. We are going to give folks a few more minutes to come into the webinar, so please continue to hold and we will start in 2 minutes. Thank you. So I think we can start today. Welcome to CyberSec Pulse webinar brought to you by Hermitage Solutions. Let me remind you that during CyberSec Pulse talks, we bring together highly qualified security professionals who introduce us to latest cybersecurity solutions and demonstrate how it solves data protection and IT security challenges. My name is Simona Bevinite, and I will be your host today as we bring David Munich, IT security analyst from senhasegura. David will introduce us how to manage full privilege access lifecycle with senhasegura. But more about that you will hear from David. Before we get started, a few reminders. We are going to record the webinar. So if you have a step away for any reason, don't you worry. We will send you the recording in about a few days. And your microphones are muted, but if you have any questions, just feel free anytime, write them in the chat, and we will get to those in the end in the verbal Q&A. So my mission here is done. David, whenever you're ready, please take it away.
Thank you, Simona, and hello, everybody. First of all, thank you for the opportunity to bring knowledge about privileged access management. So let's get started. So first of all, who we are. I worked for senhasegura for 4 years, and I've started in the knowledge management team, and then I moved to the marketing team, and pretty much I deal with consulting firms such as Gartner, Forrester, IDG, and Kuppinger Co. for the product assessment and evaluation processes. Okay. So here is the agenda for today. We will go through the current cyber threat landscape to see what's going on right now, why privileged credentials are so important. Then we will move out to the privileged access management field to see what it solves, the problems that it solves. Then we are going to introduce our approach for PAM. And then we're going to do a short demonstration. Sorry. So first of all, we have digital transformation. We probably have heard a lot about this process. The digital transformation process, which has been accelerated by the COVID-19 pandemic, it has become more than a trend. It's become a business imperative for companies to remain competitive and also to be able to deliver value to their customers. And in order to obtain all of the advantage of not only cloud, but also IoT and development, the organizations, they must execute their investments in cybersecurity, compliance, and also in identity, pretty much to mitigate all the business risks associated with the process, with this digital transformation process. And here comes the question, how to conciliate security and innovation? So according to Gartner, those are the businesses that will grow the most during the COVID-19 pandemic. And among those, we can see, of course, security and cloud services as well, and development as well. And here is a problem that we have. Today, we have more than 300 billion passwords to protect in a series of environments. And in these environments, the cyber threats are getting higher every day. 37% of all the cyber attacks researched involved stolen privileged credentials. So pretty much more than a third of all cyber attacks involved stolen privileged credential. According to the cost of data breach investigation report, the average cost of a cyber attack that involved privileged credential is $4.7 million, which is pretty much above the average overall cost, which was 3.86 million. So we can see that an attack that involved the privileged credential costs more than an average data breach. And in times of COVID-19, we have the healthcare industry suffering data breaches, and it's not impressive that it is almost twice as much, more than twice as much as the average overall cost. So the data breach cost from the healthcare industry can be up to $8.6 million, which reinforces the need not only to protect the privileged credentials in the healthcare industry, but also in the others. We have legislation that protects the data free in companies. And we've seen a 66% increase in GDPR data breach notification. And according to these analysis and from this article, there's been a major increase of data breaches notification to data protection authorities, which was a rise of 66% in the first year compared to the first year of GDPR. And here we have some of those cases. Tesco Bank, I think probably you've heard about this data breach, has agreed to pay 16 million pounds in sanctions as part of a settlement in the UK. And according to Tesco, even though the attack did not involve the threat of loss of data, it led to 34 transactions which funds were debited from other accounts. So can you imagine the risk of having funds coming unauthorized from your company? This is also one of the highest sanction from a data breach. British Airways has fined for over 20 million pounds now into 2020. But it is important to remind that this data breach was a lot higher. The ICO, which is the British data authority, initially planned to find British Airways in more than 180,000 pounds. Booking.com, nobody is safe from data breaches. In this case, for more than 400,000 in a fine after failing to report a data breach within the 48-hour period mandated by GDPR. The data breach occurred in 2018 when telephone scammers targeted 40 employees at various hotels in the United Arab Emirates. And they were able to access personal details from over 4,000 customers who had booked hotel in the United Arab Emirates. And we have the case of insider threats. Nowadays, we had the idea of the security perimeter. So we had firewalls and we have antivirus, but now those bad intention actors can be inside the organization. So it's very important to protect. Well, we have zero trust frameworks, which states that there's no security perimeter. So everything must be checked. Everything must be controlled. So this is exactly to avoid insider threats as well, because those malicious actors can be not only outside, but inside the organization. And the biggest example of all, I think, is Edward Snowden. Well, he was a contractor who was legally, and he was legitimate. He had legitimate access in the environment. So even though he had all the access, the legal access, he performed illegitimate actions. Just a moment. And now we're living in the privacy era. So data is the new oil, and regulations are there to protect data from these malicious actors, which brings new cybersecurity challenges. GDPR, for example, for Europe, we have here in Brazil, I'm talking from Brazil right now, and we also have a data privacy legislation, and even the US is now talking about a federal data privacy law. They have, for example, CCPA, but they are talking about a nationwide data privacy legislation. So GDPR, a company who is not in compliance with GDPR can suffer sanctions of up to 2% of the total revenue, or 10 million euros, whichever is the greatest. We have privileged credentials. So we have seen how privileged credentials can be damaged in the environment. So what are privileged credentials? Privileged credentials are also called the keys of the kingdom. But why are they so important? Well, pretty much because they provide access to critical actions. So for example, modifying a domain controller settings, or for example, transferring funds from the accounts. And we have seen the multiplication of this type of account in the environment. And in times of greater regulatory requirements, such as GDPR, for example, ensuring the protection of those credentials is more than reducing cyber risks and avoiding millionary sanctions. It is also ensuring business continuity. These accounts can be user accounts, which are related to people, to person, which can be a local admin, a domain admin, privileged user, or third party. Now that we are increasingly having third party access in the environments, but they can also be related to machines and applications. Service accounts, Windows service accounts, for example, application accounts, all the DevOps pipelines. You've probably heard about DevOps, which is also another area that we can cover here, but pretty much they contain machine accounts. And the trend is that this number will rise up, because Gartner talks about 20 billion connected devices in 2020. And now for 2021, this number will rise about 20%. That's the estimate, which will reach 24 billion connected devices in this year. And what are the associated risks related to privileged credential? Well, those are the main risks associated with them. First, the privilege abused of shared credentials. So we have one credential that is shared among a team, for example. A privilege abused by unauthorized user or third parties. The theft of credential by malicious agents, for example, or even if the access is legitimate, we can have the accidental use of privileges by the users. Okay, now we've seen what privileged credentials are, but what is PAM? The main purpose for PAM is to prevent cyber attacks and data leaks carried out through privileged credential, and also to ensure compliance with data protection laws. Those regulatory requirements, such as, for example, PCI, ISO, SOX, and NIST, and also data privacy legislations like GDPR, for example, they require the administrators to review credential privileges and also to implement the principle of least privilege, and implemented the appropriate privilege access management, or PAM, as we call it, is about protecting the keys of the kingdom, as we've seen the privileged credentials are. That those privileged credentials in the wrong hands can open improper doors and also expose the company to malicious invaders. And because privileged credentials are so important, they are a favorite target for malicious attackers. And according to Gartner, by next year, 2022, 70% of organizations will implement those practices for all of those use cases, which is an increase of 40% compared to today. And among those regulations that companies need to comply, we've talked about the healthcare industry, and you have HIPAA, for example, which is a data privacy framework, not framework, but legislation that it is specifically for the healthcare industry. So in this graphic here, it's possible to see the evolution of those privileged credentials. So before, we had a few users with many privileges. They were basically, those privileged credentials were basically on premises. And these were talking about admin accounts, for example, on network assets, those admins accounts on servers, for example, hypervisors. And then we had the evolution where we had cloud environments, for example. And finally, we have evaluated privileged credential to IoT and DevOps, for example. We have cameras, we have sensors, we have DevOps that use privileged credentials as well. And now we have seen the spread of APIs. So solutions are talking to each other, and this is done through APIs. And the privileged credentials who used to have many privileges, now they have fewer privileges. And also we're talking about machine access management. We have, for example, RPA. We have, for example, privileged task automation as well, PTA, and they use privileged credentials as well to perform those actions in the environment. Gartner also recognized the importance of implementing the adequate privilege management, and they have chose PAM for 2 years in a row as the #1 project in information security. And by implementing the appropriate PAM controls, it is possible to address cybersecurity needs and also to reduce those associated risks. Some of the risks also include the lack of visibility, for example, of assets connected to the infrastructure, which means that you cannot see what is connected to the assets and the credentials that are connected to your infrastructure. The lack of management of those accesses, and also the lack of traceability of actions carried out in the environment, which means that privileged malicious actors can perform actions that cannot be noted by the information security area. And those risks are directly related because we usually see that it's impossible to track what is not managed, and it's not possible to manage what is not known. Okay, but how to implement PAM? The implementation of the PAM controls involves those aspects. First of all, the people, which means the users that need privileged credentials to perform their daily tasks. Processes, those companies need to establish processes associated with those credentials, and they need tools to properly manage privileged credentials. Of those, in my opinion, the most difficult to implement are the processes and the people. And I also think that it's usually to implement the state-of-the-art in PAM technology if those business processes are not well defined and people do not have the proper cyber awareness. In this case, addressing the technology aspect without working on the others can result in greater security risks, in addition to impacts on budgets, which can affect business continuity. So imagine if you have we have a PAM solution, for example, and if we don't implement the processes and we don't have the trained people to operate these tools, in my opinion, this is useless. And what is a PAM solution? This diagram shows how it works. And here the problem is that the lack of control over these privileged credentials prevents governance in information security. And this results in a greater attack surface and also the chance of a cyber attacks. So this is pretty much how senhasegura works. We can have direct access to the devices, but of course you can block this direct access to happen, which forces the user to use this solution. So the solution, it can act as a password vault, which means that the user can view the password of a device to perform the direct access. But in companies with a higher maturity level, they perform the access directly in the device. So senhasegura can act as a proxy, which means that the users can perform the section directly through the solution. And senhasegura also offers some features related to user behavior, for example, because we've seen that malicious insider threats can be can have a high risk for the company. It is important to check all the actions that are carried out in the environment. And senhasegura also connects with CM syslog, so your SOC team can have a better overview of those actions that are carried out in the environment. And senhasegura is also compatible with cloud environments, with social media, for example, servers, network devices, applications, databases, and we have open connectors, which means that we can easily integrate even with legacy infrastructure. Here we have our PDM solution. So senhasegura can also manage elevation and delegation in endpoints. And now we're working with remote work, it is very important to have visibility of actions carried out in the endpoints. And senhasegura also solves the DevOps secret management problem. Gartner, for example, estimates that by next year, by 2022, 25% of all software development projects will follow some kind of DevOps methodology, which it's against less than 10% today. senhasegura has an exclusive module for DevOps management, which is called the DSM, the DevOps Secrets Management. Okay, now, Simona, can we release the first poll? We would like to evaluate when your company is planning to deploy a pen solution. So we give you a few moments to respond before we move on to the next slide. As you reply to the poll, So we developed here at senhasegura a maturity level evaluation process, which means that whenever you have generic users in the control level number 0, for example, you have maximum risks because you have generic users and you have no traceability over privileged actions. And then you move up to the maximum level, which is for companies who use privileged access management solution and have adopted also the best practices in terms of privileged access management, which means that you block the devices, for example, for remote sessions outside of the pen solution. You have continuous discovery on and onboard of devices, which means that the devices are onboarded as they are connected to your infrastructure automatically. We have the adoption of controls such as MFA, for example, behavior analysis, black, white, gray lists, and also approval workflows. Our approval workflows are one of the most granular in the market. And then you have also segregation of user and administration accounts with control of privileges. So this is our approach to the privileged access management lifecycle. And we believe that by implementing the appropriate privileged access management controls, it's possible to address those cybersecurity needs and also to reduce associated risks. Because those risks include, for example, the lack of visibility that we've talked before, the lack of management of privileged access, and the lack also of traceability of those actions carried out in the environment, they need to be addressed by the cybersecurity team. And then we have the before access, why and where the access occurs. We have the actions during the access, when and what actions are performed. And then we have the controls related to after the access, of which the user and the administrator can check how the access was performed. So first of all, we have the actions related to before the access. This is pretty much where we identify the access, where we give the appropriate level of access in the environment. The second of all, human, the actions performed during the access. And we have the after the access, which is pretty much related to audit performed actions in the environment. And we go through one by one of those phases of the life cycle phases. So first, a step of the life cycle is to implement the privileged access management. And to do this, it's necessary to map and to identify all the assets connected in the environment. And we've seen before that senhasegura can manage a handful of devices in the environments. And senhasegura not only manage credentials, but also digital certificates and SSH keys. In these cases, the PAN solution like senhasegura should allow the discovery and management of those devices, credentials, and also digital certificates by scanning and analyzing the entire network. And like this, any asset that is inserted in the environment can be automatically onboarded in the solution, which ensures full visibility of the keys of the kingdom. Senhasegura also ensures that any account has enough privileges to complete the tasks assigned to it. And senhasegura has one of the most granular, is one of the most granular solutions in the market, which allows administrator to reduce or to eliminate privileges whenever possible, which allows the implementation of the principle of least privilege, which is a requirement of most of, if not all, of data privacy regulation. And an additional way to also reduce the attack surface is to use just-in-time. And senhasegura also does that. According to Gartner, for example, by next year, more than half of the companies using PAN tools will focus on just-in-time access, compared to less than 25% in 2018. And it's also worth remembering that aspects such as zero trust must be addressed in the policies of identities, services, application data, and systems. For example, in this case, using zero trust, we have, for example, we can have we can offer, for example, always check and always monitor policies for third party. So let's say, for example, that your third party always access your devices through a specific location. So this time they are accessing for a different location. Or let's say, for example, that your user, your employee, they access for in an unknown origin or unknown duration, for example, or unknown time. Let's say, for example, that those transactions are usually performed in the morning, and now they are performed in the afternoon. So this will probably trigger an alert at senhasegura saying, okay, listen, your user has performed an action in another time that they are used to. The use of senhasegura's scan discover feature, they allow the discovery of manage of device in the environment and their credentials as well. Senhasegura can also discover DevOps containers and playbooks, digital certificates, and SSH keys. And these, like this, senhasegura allows that any asset connected in the environment is automatically imported in this solution. To mitigate leaks and risks to your company's data, some of the best password practices include managing credentials in a password vault, using the automatic password change feature, for example. And this can be used by predetermined usage, course, or time, which allows the reduction of the attack surface and, for example, prevents your user to sharing passwords across the team because the password will be automatically changed. This case, senhasegura can also address your information security policy, for example, requirements. So let's say, for example, that your devices, they require a specific password range. So senhasegura also allows your policy to be implemented as well. The next phase of the life cycle is the during, which means that all the actions performed during the access will be monitored. This step talks about the actions taken during the access. Senhasegura, in this case, allows defining the administrator user who will be allowed to access the password of a credential, and also to perform, for example, a remote session, and also the group of users who can use the remote access offered by the solution. This is done in a just-in-time manner. So senhasegura offers session recording and video storage as well, automatic control for elevation of privilege. They can see the password of accreditation in a just-in-time manner, and also password reset. senhasegura offers threat analysis, which comprises the audit, alert, and command block. Command score as well. They can senhasegura can detect lateral movement and elevation of privilege, and also user behavior. As we've seen before, senhasegura can identify suspicious accesses through some criteria, such as the number of access, unusual time, for example, unknown origin, and a typical duration. And the last phase of the last step of the privileged access is to check everything that was performed on the assets managed by senhasegura. senhasegura is able to identify and to allow solution administrators to audit possible privilege violation or abuses during the access performed in the previous steps. And like this, it is possible to assure the traceability of all the actions carried out in the environment, which facilitates, for example, the audit process of all the configurations managed. This allows the organizations to manage the use of a privileged credential after completing the access and quickly respond to incident and reduce operational costs. For example, GDPR, it requires a privilege data breach to be informed within 48 hours. And without a PAN solution, it is very difficult to investigate, to proper investigate and to report those data breaches. And which are our differentials? First of all, we are a turnkey. We are a turnkey solution, which means that we have just one virtual machines, and your company does not have to worry about costs related to operational costs, for example, to database, because this is all embedded in the solution. senhasegura offers fast deployment. So because we offer a turnkey virtual machine, which can be also deployed in a hardware solution, which is offered by us, it requires less than 1 day to install and to deploy. senhasegura is also known as having easy adoption. If you take a look at our evaluations at Gartner peer insights, our users, they complement how senhasegura has an excellent user experience, which means less training course and smaller learning curve. senhasegura is an all-in-one PAN solution, which means that all the next modules that will be launched by our team will be can be easily deployed in the solution. So senhasegura offers an all-in-one solution for complete privilege access management, involving not only PAM, but endpoint protection, DevOps, and secret management, and also certificate management. The results, we can have a balance between privileges and accesses, implementing the principle of least privilege, which results in a balance of security and productivity. We usually say that if you increase the security level, you probably reduce the productivity of your team. For example, you need more controls, you need more security controls to be addressed. But if you do the opposite, for example, if you decrease the level of security, you probably increase the level of productivity of your team. So it's really a balance here. The challenge is really to give the best level of those two. Then we have compliance with security policies and regulations, such as GDPR, for example, SIS controls, for example. NIST is another framework that companies implement, and senhasegura allows the implementation of the principle of least privilege, which also decreases cybersecurity risks and ensures business continuity in the environment. To summarize, well, PAM is crucial to implement privileged access management in your environment. And a solution like senhasegura, which is simple, complete, and simple to deploy, is essential to address these features needs without user friction. And those are the words of Gartner. Manage privileged access risks is virtually impossible with PAM solutions. And now that we've seen all the content of the presentation, we will move on to the demonstration. So here is senhasegura's home screen. So senhasegura is a web-based solution. So all the console, all the actions is performed through your browser. So here we have a menu with everything is consolidated. The PAM solution, the digital certificates solution, task manager, for example, DSM. So we have all the modules consolidated here in this screen. So in this case, here you have the desktop where you can see a summary of your PAM usage. For example, your most used credentials, your requests, the passwords that are under your custody, for example. And if we go on all, on the menu, oops, expired my access. Let me been logged out. So just log in again. After a certain time of inactivity, the solution logs out automatically to prevent someone else to access. So those are pretty much all the credentials that are managed by the solution. So we can have, for example, here, your AWS console, for example. So if you click on here, this will automatically start the session. And the session is recorded, so you can review later every action that has been performed in the environment. So I have to type the CAPTCHA, which comes from the AWS management console. So now senhasegura delivers the AWS management console, and everything that is performed here is being recorded. So I will give another example just to show you the radar. I can either view the password here, for example, if you want to perform direct access from outside of the solution. But the best practice is to perform the access from the solution, because then everything is recorded. So you have here the password, you can view the password, or you can perform the session directly in the device. So to show, and all the credentials, they are imported through the discovery feature. So here we're talking about the before the access. So here you can see the progress of all the discovery executions. You can review the devices and the credentials that have been discovered, and then you can choose whatever you want to import. This is the before access. And now this is the during the access. So now we're performing the actual access in the device. And here we have the dashboards, which shows you a centralized view of everything that is happening in the environment. You can see the number of credentials that are managed, the number of devices. You have the pen view. So those dashboards are separated by the modules. senhasegura offers an exclusive threat radar, for example, and it shows graphic representation of all the sessions that are being carried out in the environment. So whenever I click here, it shows, for example, what the user, the device that I'm accessing right now, the duration, and me as an auditor, for example, I can see more information about this access. So here's shows the protocol, the latest detected commands, for example, for SSH commands. And I can even drop the session as well. So I come here. And me as an auditor, for example, I can request the session to be dropped. So, and then I am disconnected and I cannot perform any further action in the environment. I still have the other session, the Windows session as well. So if I close here, I'm just quickly showing you. You can, of course, request a demo, and then we'll be happy to perform a proof of concept in your organization as well. And now here I have all the reports, all the pen reports that senhasegura can, for example, we have PCI specific reports. So if I go here on remote sessions, I can see the sessions that have been performed in the environment as well. So senhasegura has lots of reports for you to configure as well. So I think this is pretty much what I had to show on the presentation. I'll get back to you, Simona.
Yeah, David, thank you very much for the presentation. Now we will move to questions and answers. And at the moment we have 2 questions, but we still have some time, so hopefully we'll get more. So shall we start?
Yeah, bring them on.
Okay, so the first question is about discovery feature. Can you tell me how does it work?
Yeah, excellent question. senhasegura, as I've said before, we offer open connectors, which means that we can discover pretty much any device and credential in the environment. And those open connectors, they can be configured by the client, by the company. So, and also we have lots of those connectors offered in our knowledge base, and our partners and our clients also contribute to this knowledge base with also other connectors as well. So we can pretty much integrate even with legacy infrastructure.
Okay, thank you, David. And next question is, how many servers are needed for the proof of concept?
We only require 1 server. Since senhasegura is offered as a virtual machine, it can be deployed on 1 single server. So it does not require operational systems or databases as well. So you pretty need 1 server. The configuration of the server is done in less than 1 day.
Okay, thank you. And since you started talking about deployment, one more question is, what are the deployment options for senhasegura?
Well, as I've said, senhasegura can be deployed on premises. It can be deployed on your server if you already have. If you can offer a server for the virtual machine to be deployed, but we also offer our own hardware solution for deployment, so you don't have to worry about the hardware to be deployed. Senhasegura can also be offered as a service, and in the cloud, for example, in a private or in a public cloud as well. So, and also as a service.
Okay, so yeah, this is it. Unless we soon will have one more question, but seems that no one is writing. So, well, from our side, this is it, David. We have no more questions. So, if you have anything to say.
I just want to thank everybody. Hopefully, you get more information about the privileged access lifecycle. And if you need anything else, just reach us out.
Yes, I also would like to add, if you have any questions after the presentation, just feel free to reach out to us. Hermitage Solutions team is always ready to answer your questions. And at the same time, I would like to invite you to our upcoming webinar in May, in the end of May, where together with Arista, we are going to talk about network detection and response platform, which helps to hunt and respond to insider and external threats. So please stay tuned. And with this note, I would like to end our webinar today. So have a nice rest of the day and see you soon. Stay healthy. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.